We live in a society where honor is a distant memory. Isn't that right, Batman?
And we're back. Welcome to another episode of Mike, and Oscar. I am also Mike, handling the introduction today because this is another guest-hosted episode where I will be joined in a conversation with one of the two hosts of Is It Worth It, the film review podcast. IsItWorthItPodcast.com is where you go for all of their stuff, for all of their links. They're available everywhere you guys can listen that you would want to listen. I am thrilled to be joined by Craig today after being joined by David Long in the last episode where we did an Oscar race checkpoint covering the PGAs, covering the WGAs. Great conversation with David Long. Had a blast doing that. And after that recording, I went right into a conversation with Craig about the Snyder Cut. That is Zack Snyder's Justice League. And this is a massive episode. This is a massive movie event review, but it is certainly what we do here on MMO, and it is what that they do over there on Is It Worth It, the film review podcast, because we love to talk Oscars, but we also just love to talk movies. And this is certainly something as zeitgeisty as we're ever going to get in the film world. This debut on HBO Max of the Snyder Cut. So I was really happy to get the chance to talk to Craig about this movie at the length we get to talk about it. So it's a sizable episode. You will have a spoiler warning, and about after a half hour, you'll get that spoiler warning, and it's a big musical warning, so do not fear, do not fret. We won't get into the plot details if you haven't seen it beforehand. We're going to talk about a lot of the industry stuff, talk about a lot of the side stories, a lot of the stories that are a bit polarizing right now with the fandom, with a lot of different things. It's just an intense conversation at times. It's a meaningful one, and it's also a lot of fun, and we can't help but have fun with a movie like this. So make sure you guys follow one David Long, DavidLong. That is David's handle on Twitter. Make sure you follow I Am Crag, IAMCRAG. They are all over Twitter. They are all over our feed lately. And IsItWorthItPodcast.com is, of course, where you can get at them on the internet to get all their links to everything they do with that podcast. Film is Worth It is the handle. Film is Worth It is the handle on Twitter as well. I just skipped that. I screwed up the socials in the last intro, but I've gone too far, as they said in Harold and Kumar. We've gone too far. We've gone down the hallway. This is the end of a massive 3-hour recording session where I'm recording the intro. So look, I already know this episode is good. I already know that David got the better of my hosting abilities, as I said to him on the way out. But yeah, Craig gets the sloppy seconds of my hosting abilities here. It's still an awesome conversation. I'm really proud of it. And we actually just go right through to the outro. So I won't see you guys again until our next episode. That's probably some Oscar stuff between Mike and I, where we talk DGA, where we talk perhaps some Oscar locks. What categories are we locking? But that'll be coming up next after we dive into the movie event that is the Snyder Cut. Enjoy. Okay, on the line we have Craig from the Is It Worth It podcast, film review podcast. We just talked to David in the last episode, and now Craig is with us here for a movie event, and this is quite the movie event, Craig. So number one, welcome, and I'm also leery of this conversation because we have differing opinions, but welcome, buddy.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to delve into this extravaganza.
We got to delve, and it is an extravaganza. That's a wonderful way to put it. All right, we don't have much time for pleasantries. We are reviewing a 4-hour movie. There's a ton of cool stuff to talk about, uncool stuff to talk about, for good reason, with Zack Snyder's Justice League here. And we got to dive right in to the critical reception first, please, Craig.
Okay, well, Zack Snyder's Justice League has a 73% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, where the audience rating is even higher at a whopping 96% from over 25,000 votes.
Yeah, and even I remember looking at it, and I was surprised when I looked at it, and then when I saw it written down there, I was surprised, and now I'm even more surprised to hear you say it, because Craig, I can't start this relationship off with a lie. Nor would I dare pander to a man who's been through the week you've been through, buddy.
Yes.
So when I wrote this, there was a pigeon in your chimney. Did that pigeon get out yet?
Well, it was a bit touch and go at one point, but this pigeon was saved by a wonderful person, an officer from a charity in the UK called the RSPCA, and what a job she did. She managed to retrieve it. It's still alive. It's slightly injured, but it's gone to a doctor for animals, a vet that will take care of it, hopefully.
That is a beautiful story. It's a beautiful story. And I feel so much more guilty about disagreeing with you today on this movie. But like I said, I just can't lie to you. I can't, especially you just been through so much. So as I was saying, I don't know what these critics are smoking, but I want some. I'm sort of kidding. I guess I should say I'm fully kidding, but I can't. I'm sort of kidding. I want to like this movie more than I do, but I can't get there with it. Now, I am in the minority, and I know you are in more of a safe zone with the confidence of the people here. So how do you view Zack Snyder's Justice League? Can you tease your review for a minute? You're being a great guy here. You just got a pigeon out of your chimney, and you're trying to be nice to me, and you're a guest, and you're just a beautiful human being, Craig. But no, let's hear it. Where do you fall on this film?
You really want to hear that I loved it, didn't you?
I like that we have differing opinions on this podcast. Usually it's me and Mike, and we got all our old shtick. But you're a new voice here, so we'll have to invent new shtick with how we go down this road. But yeah, no, I usually have guests, and we usually kind of line up. But this is fascinating. You're in for this movie, but you're kind of measured about it, I would say, right?
I'm in and I'm out. I mean, that's the best way of putting it, really. Yes, and no. And I think that's the only way I can, as a tease, that's the best way of putting it, really.
But you did have those moments of yes.
Oh, yeah.
I did not, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to learn from you. I'm going to have to figure out and pick your brain on where those moments came from. So that is fascinating to me. But I am looking at the other number from the critics, and I'm starting to feel like what you just said to me is more sensible, because the creme de la creme of the critics for the Metascore, they gave it a 54. So that lines up kind of with where you're at, that CC plus range, which I would say 54 Metascore is around that. That's a mixed review. So Craig and I, MMOers, we're going to have some fun today regardless. I realize I'm in the minority, so I think you're going to let me have it a little bit today, I would say. But all right, we have relationships with this source material. And I think that's where we got to start today, Craig, because this is source material that people love out there. And I'm not a DC hater. So let me just give you my backstory for a second. Yes, I'm an MCU lover. And I probably shouldn't have said that, because this is where all the polarization comes from. But I'm not a DC hater, though. That's the thing. Like, from Christopher Reeve to Christopher Nolan, a ton of animated series in between, a ton of roller coasters. Like, I don't know if they have Six Flags DC-themed roller coasters out there by you guys.
No, I don't think they do they?
They do here. So, like, I had, like, my childhood, some of the best moments of my childhood on the Batman Michael Keaton roller coaster, on the Superman ride, like greatest teenage day of my life, with girls for the first time out, like a 12-year-old, 13. Like, those are my memories with the DC, like having days with Superman and Batman, the coasters, never mind the film. So Mike and I, we do the Joker character study. We love it. And we enjoy a lot of the great badness of the DCU, even the DCEU rather. So yeah, I think if I had to restudy Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice or the original Justice League, I would want to kill them till they're dead. I don't know how you view those, but I liked Man of Steel, I liked Wonder Woman, I liked Aquaman, and yes, the Joker, or Joker with Joaquin Phoenix. So I have a bit of a mixed experience with the DCEU, but overall on the DC, I'm a big fan. So how about you? Can you tell me your relationship a little bit with DC? Are you a comic book guy going all the way back? Are you just a film guy? What's your history with the DC?
So I suppose to kick things off, I am a bit of a nerd in some ways, and I do enjoy comic books. Maybe not as much as some real diehard fans, but if we want to go right the way back to when I was a young man, superhero movies or superhero comic book characters have been in my life for a long time. And I was a genuine DC fan, I suppose, unintentionally, when I watched Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman from 1993. And honestly, that's where my love for Superman probably came from. And I'm probably going to get a lot of abuse for that. But
so that's Terry Hatcher. Hold on. So that's Terry Hatcher. And what's the actor's name?
I can't remember his name, and I'm sorry for that. I mean, but he does a lot of other stuff now, doesn't he?
Lois and Clark. Well, is he one of those? Is he one of those like? Here we go. Dean Cain.
That's
Dean Cain.
Yeah.
And Terry Hatcher. Wowza.
Oh, yeah. So I mean, that's where my love for Superman came from, I suppose. But there, like you say, there was a ton of animated stuff in between.
There was a lot of DC shows there. There was, for every age group that just kept doing them. You guys are younger than me, but I had Batman, the animated series.
Yeah.
I had the Mask of the Phantasm, which was a big deal when I was like 12 or 13. And then I had, like the Kirby stuff when I got older. I remember reading the graphic novel of The Dark Knight Returns. And then just recently, I finally caught up with the animated films on HBO Max of The Dark Knight Returns from, not Kirby, Frank Miller. Kirby was the MCU guy, but Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, excuse me there. That's my fault. So, all right, we have fun to have with this movie, but we also have some serious stuff to get into and a few serious stories here, of course. There's a terrible tragedy on why Zack Snyder steps away, why he cannot finish the film, why Joss Whedon has to step in. Terrible tragedy, but there's also the resounding blessing in the aftermath, where Zack Snyder has raised over $500,000 for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. This film is dedicated to his daughter Autumn, and it ends with her favorite song, Hallelujah. Zack Snyder's helped a lot of people here, and we can certainly all get behind so many positive affirmations throughout this film, spoken and chanted and sung and soundtracked, that clearly helped this man and many others grieve and cope and heal. So I would imagine I'm just skimming the surface here, Craig, but how does this aspect of the production story hearten you, or does this backstory even shine through the actual film for you?
I guess it's a really difficult one, but I think you have to separate them. I think they're two very different stories, and one's real life and one isn't, but you've got to, sometimes you have to lean into the imagination of the not real to really get through certain things, and Snyder's put his heart and soul into this to make it what his true vision was, and he pays dedication to his daughter, and he's done a lot of great things on the back of it to help it along the way. And that if we're going to take one positive thing from this film, this will certainly be it. But I think there's a few other things that I can take from it that are more positive that we can probably talk about later. But yeah.
So the film works for you where it works as a film, but then you could take like the extemporaneous things where it's, I don't know why, I kind of just, I read into movies a lot. I get maybe it's the Oscar narrative thing and the fact that I'm an Oscar pundit kind of deal. And, like the Thomas Vinterberg story meant a lot to me, and I kind of read into that, and I wanted all the subtext in another round. And I think you any director, any auteur, I kind of read into it. I do think a lot of fans are reading into it in a way because everybody's so charged up about this. I wonder, does it make sense to you that maybe this subject matter is kind of adding to the fray in a way?
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, and I think there are some through lines and some story that might, every director has to build upon things that happen in their life and put those into the story, and they have to try and put some reality into it, and it does. There are elements of it in there, and I think there's a lot less. Like for me, I watched it as a film that I tried not to look into that. I think it's because I want to see the superhero element. I want to have fun with it, and I try not to read into things too much and go into them. I want to know whether I'm entertained, have I enjoyed it, or have I not enjoyed it, and why didn't I enjoy it. But with this, it's such a long film. It's such a long amount of different things that happen within it that there's almost many different stories, and it's really hard to sort of pick out elements of it that might say that yes, this is part of that, and some of it isn't. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. It's probably the healthy way to look at it, because you can compartmentalize and just review the film. And I wish I was like you, I guess, because the next set of stories, like if I'm just focusing on those first set of stories, I mean that's a heartening tale, I would say, and that makes me want to like this movie more. But this next set of stories makes me want to, just get angry with this movie and this whole project in general. So I think we got to talk about it. I mean, the production backstory is much more complicated than this personal odyssey of Zack Snyder. There have been years of hashtags and trolling and allegations of quote unquote cyberbullying, and those allegations came out in a recent article from WB themselves. WB calls this cyberbullying. So don't just put it on me, people, if you're coming to the story anew. So these movements haven't just been DC MCU rivalry. This has been something a bit toxic. It's not a bit toxic. It has been toxic on the internet, according to the major studios, according to a lot of people who analyze this, according to my co-host who's tweeted about it, these controversies for a while. So again, you're compartmentalizing, but are you aware going in of what's been happening on social media? I mean, you guys are a part of Film Twitter too. Are you staying away from it and you just want to like the movie totally, or you can't help but kind of watch it as a train wreck?
I tend to stay away from looking at some other people's views on films, because especially before I watch the films as well, because I don't want to be tinged by their opinion. So I'm not privy to a complete set of what's been going on social media in terms of the cyberbullying. So this is between different people, different fans, MCU, DC. Is this what you're saying, or is it more than that? Is it within the culture of the film on set, or is it less than that?
No, you're such a purist. You are the one. You're the chosen one. Like nobody else. Like Mike and I can't be like this. We can't. We talk about it all the time. Like Mike is like, I am not a man of principle, and I say the same thing. No, you are a man of principle.
That I am.
Jesus, this is incredible. I'm dealing with a genuine article right now. So a bit of a clunky opening because we're feeling each other out, and yeah, that is absolutely fascinating to me. So, okay. Let's kind of do one more final prerequisite before we dive into this review and we just let your film critic muscles flex. But I do want to talk to you about HBO Max, about the viewership, about what kind of a hit this movie could be. And I did a little bit of research. We had 2 articles posted this week from Screen Rant and Deadline, and they're a bit opposite, but let's be honest, the numbers are similar. Samba, I guess they're like a Nielsen service. I don't know what you guys have for TV ratings out there, but Samba calculated 2.2 million viewers in the first 3 days of Wonder Woman 1984 and 1.8 million viewers for Justice League. The opposite was the case for Screen Rant. So we have Screen Rant saying that actually there's 35% higher audience numbers, viewership numbers for Justice League than Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
So basically it sounds like they're close, but if those viewership numbers pan out, we're going to have a conversation here about what that means. So Craig, how do you view these conflicting reports? Is this more par for the course? This is just a polarizing film? Do you think the journalists are polarized as well, or do you think this is margin of error stuff, like kind of I was guessing there?
How do we unpick that? I mean, it's difficult. How much of that is it just, so you're saying that Samba is a regulated body that calculates these views, so that should be quite accurate, really?
Yeah, that's from Deadline, and they're an old established trade here in in the U.S. So Deadline, I would say they're relying on some hard numbers from somebody,
Yeah.
and this somebody is Samba. Would I like Samba to have a more serious name? I would like Samba to have a more serious name when calculating viewership numbers of this millions of dollars. But okay, so yeah, so does that actually make it more real for you? The fact that it's coming from Deadline?
Yeah, I mean, if it's coming from a reputable brand or company that is able to give me the stats and that I can trust, then yeah. But
Yeah.
what does that really mean though going forward? Because one, and I think you're probably going to talk about this a bit more. But one had a cinematic release, and this
Yeah.
and the other didn't. How does that impact that? And I think it doesn't add up for me.
That's very true. There's no doubt HBO Max has added subscribers since Wonder Woman 1984 and since their Christmas push and putting their entire slate on the streaming service or day and date with movie theaters in the US here. So there's no question that's a factor. I wonder if this is just people being bullish, or I wonder if they're calculating viewership maybe later down the line, even though these articles were released the same day. This is going to be a fascinating story to follow, but let's look at those numbers for a second. 2.2 million views, whether it's Wonder Woman or whether it's Justice League, we don't really know or care right now. But let's just compare those numbers to like box office numbers. Like if you put the $10 average ticket price, just to make the math easier, 2.2 million views is $22 million at the box office, right? Move the decimal point. If you project ticket price higher, then we're looking more towards the $30 million range. Obviously, we know that HBO Max has 37 million subscribers. Let's flip the coin here for a second. Let's look at Netflix, and let's look at the Netflix numbers that we've gotten this year. 203 million subscribers at the end of 2020, and their big cojones not a word, their big movie, Extraction, I guess cojones, yeah, it's a ballsy movie. All right, where my brain goes sometimes, but Extraction on Netflix had a viewership after a month, not after a weekend, but after a month, of 99 million. That is a huge number. And basically, if you extrapolate that out, if you add a decimal point, or if you move the decimal point, you're looking at $1 billion film in terms of viewership. So these are totally different ball games, and these are totally different sized audiences here. Totally different sized arguments too, as my brain was going. But all right, look, the Snyder Cut. How big of a hit do you think it is on HBO Max? Judging those numbers, how big of a hit do you think it's going to be when the Q1 numbers come out? Do you have any hunches on like what we're looking at with the Snyder Cut? Because I do think it matters, because it matters to the industry, because we know it's made a dent on film Twitter, the Snyder Cut.
Yeah, no, it's going to impact the industry hugely. It's taken a hit in terms of revenue, I think, in terms of box office, and maybe turning a profit, because it cost a fair amount to do a lot of to make the Snyder Cut come back from what it was previously. So are they going to make their money back? Is it going to be a long-term thing where they make their money back? I don't know. I mean, they must have increased their numbers in viewership. Over here in the UK, we had it on Sky Cinema, or Now TV as they call it. It's the same company more or less. And I would have imagined there was a lot of increased demand for that. And actually Sky are picking up some huge films, especially later in next month. They've got Promising Young Women coming to Sky Cinema as well. So, that's a huge one. And, it does. I think it will increase numbers, but in terms of revenue, I think that's going to be going down the opposite way, because you're paying one price, you're getting a lot more for your money, you're not having to pay multiple tickets. And I think, it definitely is going to make an impact in that way.
You almost got to portion out the subscriber figure to many different movies. And that's where a lot of people are talking about confusion within the industry and how people are analyzing it. So I think you're right on there. But I am glad of this next fact that you actually watched the making of documentary for the Snyder Cut, and you
Yes.
were able to check that out. And yes, this was a big budget endeavor to reshoot this or to finish shooting this, or nobody knows, but you actually know. I don't know. You know. So what were your takeaways from the making of here?
I was confused, I'll be honest, because they added one scene into the film, and then they've done some various additional reshoots, and they've unpicked a lot of what Joss Whedon did with the original film, and I can't quite put my finger on how much Zack Snyder actually managed to shoot and where Joss Whedon picked up and changed things and how much he shot. There was a lot of stuff, from what I am led to believe, that Joss Whedon just went back and reshot. And
so
then
Whedon did the reshoots.
Whedon did a lot of reshoots, and then Zack Snyder's gone back in and taken that out, removed the gumph, and then put a lot more stuff back in, from what I understand. It's a difficult one because at the same time, Snyder's done something very different here in terms of how we view it as well, and we may get onto that a bit later on. But it's in terms of aspect ratio when we view it, and there's a reason for that, and it's one of the biggest reasons for it is because I can. And that's simply what he says in the behind the scenes. It's like, it's just a strange theory behind it, and I like it in some ways, and sometimes some other ways I don't. Especially when you realise where this is going to be delivered. Did he need to go down that road to make it his true vision? Maybe not. There was a lot to take away, and there's a particular scene that they've added that I think we'll probably talk about in the spoiler part of this, that is quite polarizing as well.
I can't wait till we get to that point, but I'm fascinated to actually watch the making of. I wish I was able to get the time to watch that before recording today. So that's fascinating. That's not what I had perceived. And again, I'm a bit ignorant of this whole process. My co-host is a little more up on it. I know he wishes he could be here with us today, Craig, but he, I think both of us were under the impression that Snyder did more reshoots than maybe Whedon did, but that's interesting that they spun it the other way, or that maybe that's exactly what happened when like you're saying, like what seems to be documented here, and then Snyder actually preserved what he had already shot.
Yeah,
and Whedon.
I think a lot of it was like restoration almost, like he restored what was previously done in terms of footage, and then it was adding in certain further elements that, and restoring certain characters to how they should have looked, essentially. I think that was the main aspect of what they were doing, and a lot of that comes from visual effects and various other techniques that make it stand out in different ways.
So, not to say too much, but you're you are an industry pro, and you look at a $70 million price tag for visual effects and maybe one scene. My God, what must that work have been like? I mean, I guess it makes you appreciate, these Hollywood budgets and these, the big studio productions a little bit. But the CGI is that important to this picture, obviously. But I'm a little surprised that Zack Snyder had to do so much for the reshoot, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
or the recut, I guess.
Yeah, there was a lot to do, and I think there was a lot of. I think in the industry we call it like color grading and regrading and reshaping as well, in terms of like the aspect ratio, because of the way it's been shot previously, and how Joss Whedon undid a lot of the way it was shot to make it a more conventional aspect ratio for when it comes into cinemas and for home viewing as well, I suppose.
So that Martin Scorsese number is not looking so big for The Irishman now, is what my biggest takeaway of this conversation. Because $70 million for mostly post-production VFX for a movie that VFX heavy is one thing, but then the Irishman did a ton of VFX, and that price tag skyrocketed. But now we get it. Now we get why. So, all right. I'm wondering how you watched this film. I know you had a crazy week derail things for you, and it wasn't just the pigeon.
Yeah.
Poor Craig, but it was a not so week for you. But I kind of watched it the same way both times, and I probably shouldn't have. I watched the first hour, was like, nah, it just made that noise, and then I came back to it and I watched the next 3 hours from there. How did you watch the film? Did you watch like a TV show or a movie?
Well, it's really difficult to watch a 4-hour film in one straight hit, especially when you have other things going on in your life, and it is broken into an episodic piece in a way. You have different parts to it. You have an epilogue. You have a lot of stuff going on there, and it makes it easier to manage in some sense, because if you do want to stop watching it and go off and do something else, you can. But that takes away something from me, because what we do, we are a film review podcast. That's what David and I do, and we review films in the cinema. And to have a 4-hour film in the cinema, you would mostly have a break maybe halfway through it, an interval maybe. With this, and when you're at home, you get frustrated when watching films at home, and you are more likely to pause, have a toilet break, look at your phone for whatever reason, and it does change the way that you view films. And this film makes it even harder to undo the way you view your films previously when you go to the cinema. And
yeah,
I if in that sense, I can't like the way that I viewed it, because I wanted to watch it all in once with no distractions, and I found it very hard to do so. But I viewed it in an episodic way. I had to watch maybe part 1, part 2, then have a break and do something else, and then come back to it. And maybe that was the wrong way to do it, but it was the only way I could do it because of various reasons.
No, I'm fascinated by the fact that we viewed it in polar opposite ways, because I wound up sitting for the 3-hour binge because I just didn't know how to get out and come back, and I didn't know if I would come back. I was in that weird spot. Like, this was not made to be episodic television, even though they gave you that option, I suppose. And at the same time, it wasn't made to be a 4-hour movie. So it is in that in-between land, somewhere in Romania here. So, all right, look, I think we're gonna break it down like specifically coming up, but I do want to kind of get into some of the more film critic-y things here with a final non-spoiler segment before we give a spoiler warning, and that is, Mike and I always talk about production values, direction. We talk about the story and the script in a non-spoiler way. We give that non-spoiler review, and then we talk about the performances. So I have some positives, and I know you do too, if you fall in that C to C plus range, perhaps. So what are a few of your positives out of that mix?
So I think Snyder's done some really great stuff with CGI, and vastly improved the way certain characters look, in terms of being a difficult. Well, what am I trying to say? Did they deliver on the comic books in a way? Yeah, I mean, but also in terms of an antagonist being fearsome, it was so much more fearsome than it was previously, because of the way that they'd put more CGI onto him, or maybe not CGI, but a costume in a sense that was totally different and totally more fearsome. But and then the cinematography on top of that is exquisite in a lot of places. It falls short in maybe a few other ones, but we won't go into the negative just yet. But I think a lot of the characters are way more well-rounded. We have a lot more from certain characters than we had previously, and you get more backstory to some of them, which I was a real fan of, because previously it was just a real mess. We weren't introduced to characters properly, and this time we really were. And you actually got a character arc that was worthy of a film like this, I thought, anyway, personally.
Well, I would agree with you on that. I think the last film from Joss Whedon should be burned at the stake. Yeah, and then just buried 100 feet deep. Not buried like they bury things in this film, like 2 feet deep, shallow grave. What are we doing?
That was crazy.
Look, I would agree. I think the visuals are the strength of this film. I think Zack Snyder has one of the strongest, sexiest visual styles ever, and I say that on multiple levels. I think this is hero pornography for cosplayers and for comic book enthusiasts, and for anybody who loves a great superhero movie, who loves a great theme park movie. And that is it's a genre right now that people are paying big bucks to go see. So the cinematography is just gorgeous to behold. I mean, you got nature gasms, you got just beautiful people without garments on, And the only thing that would have been more beautiful if they just finished this movie with a fucking orgy. But I think they're that hot. It's just that hot. It's hottie overload in this movie. It's great cinematography. So if you're looking for those goods delivered, consider them delivered. Gal Gadot is the most beautiful woman on the planet.
She's
and
stunning.
these guys-
She is terrific. She genuinely is. And you couldn't cast a better person as Wonder Woman.
I'm glad you interrupted me there. I was about to say things even more embarrassing than where I was going, but I think I really think that she is a star in the making, and I'm glad. I think they did her better in this movie than the previous one. Obviously, Cyborg is another character that you mentioned a lot more exposition and necessary exposition, and I gravitated to that plot line as well upon the recut. I do think there's some fun action sequences and some funny moments still. Like everybody was saying, Zack Snyder has just the overwhelming tone at times, but we still have some jokes in here that worked. I just think it's like kind of sandwiched into a bunch of terrible dialogue scenes. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of a middle school dance, which is my nightmare. Just being, I don't know if you've ever chaperoned a middle school dance, but having to listen to those kids just talk and be as nervous as they are and then actually communicate with each other. It's a horrible nightmare. And this movie reminded me of some of that. This is also if you're standing in line for Comic-Con for 4 days, I feel like day 4, the dialogue would be going like this movie. People would just lose their shit and just speak like these characters. But look, Chris Terrio is cashing them checks after his Argo screenplay, after his Oscars. Good for him. I want his career. I would kill for his career. I would kill bullmen and bug people for his career, Craig. But all right, we talked about some positives. I want to leave it there for the non-spoiler section because I don't want to berate people who I respect, like yourself, for reasons that are very clear to both Mike and I and to our audiences, because you are a man distinguishable from the two of us because of your character and our character. So very clearly, I want to say that my family, my friends love this movie. And I am in the minority, and I respect the hell out of their opinions. We talk movies all the time. There's other film critics that have been on this show. They love this movie, and I disagree, but I will say that I listen to their podcast, and I will continue to listen to their podcast, and I respect their opinions. And again, whatever they're smoking, I want some. So that's where I'm at. But please, you guys we're gonna do a spoiler section, but in case anybody can't listen, Craig, please remind everybody where they can find you and David on social media and where they can find your great podcast.
Yeah, so you can find us, it's at www.isitworthitpodcast.com. You can find the podcast on all good podcasting apps. That's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and even Amazon Music, if you want to go on there and find it. Just search Is It Worth It, the film review podcast. And you can find me on Twitter at I am Crag. That's not a misspelling, that's correct. It is CRAG, I am Crag. And that's where you can hit us up. Or on Twitter at Film Is Worth It.
All right, well, we're going to get into spoilers and break it all down.
Spoilers ahead!
This is a spoiler warning.
Spoilers. 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 Spoilers.
So this is gonna be a bit of a free-flowing conversation now, Craig, because I think the notes are all over the place. I think I wrote down a lot of snarkiness, and I don't apologize for it. It's just a lot of snark coming.
No, this is cool.
You're gonna talk me off some ledges. You're gonna try and punch me through the Zoom, I think, at the same time. But I'm eager to get into this because I'm sure I have some misconceptions. You know the source material. You know these characters better than I do, it seems.
Do you think?
Certain. No, I do, because I mean I read some of the graphic novels, but I mean if you were really in deep to the comics, or in more so than me, then you have. But here's the thing: like you can separate backstories. You're a man of principle, whereas I am not. Even though I pretend to be. Where am I going? Look, I think I think we have a variety of thoughts. I think I'm stalling because I'm nervous, because we're about to unveil it all, and it starts with this immediate carryover. We talked about it in the non-spoiler section. They have this epilogue on this film that people hate on social media and in the public, and people love, because it goes into whole nother storyline, the Injustice storyline that I've gathered is what it's called. But it is this scene in this dystopian, apocalyptic world where Batman and his Suicide Squad of various characters that we've met along this journey, someone from Atlantis, of course, great pick, Amber Heard from Atlantis there, plus Jared Leto, the Joker, amidst the Flash and Cyborg. Am I forgetting one more guy who was there?
Was it Deadshot? I think it was it?
Deadshot was there, and he showed up in the fourth epilogue before the fifth epilogue that I'm now referring to. Yes, Deadshot was there because he was on the boat with Lex Luthor. Then he was there. But look, this scene is the most polarizing thing about the film for some reason. So I think I am the screenwriter brain that I can't believe they get away with this. I can't believe he had the audacity to do this, because it was all a dream reversal at the end of one story is something that my 8th grade creative writing teacher told me, never do that again. You're an idiot. And he was the most lovely man alive. And yet he's got the patience of a saint.
Right.
He's reading freaking 8th grade creative writing essays for a living. So he told me, this is bullshit. Don't do this. And here Zack Snyder is doing it was all a dream. So I guess I gotta just lay it out there. Do you enjoy? Which side do you fall on? Do you like this scene? Do you not like this scene? I'm sure we both could say that the narrative device to get us in and out, was dumb.
Yeah, definitely. That narrative device to get you into a dream sequence is poor. It's really poor. But when you're into it, this is a whole different film. This is a whole different thing, and it's a whole different kettle of fish, because I thought it was amazing. Like, I really, really liked it. I thought we had a way better Joker than we had in that very poor film that I don't even want to say the name of because it was terrible. Suicide Squad. I said it. I'm sorry, but it was terrible. It's a whole different piece of filmmaking almost, and it shows, because this is the part of the film that was completely new and inserted, and I liked it. I really liked it, and however, there were some weird things going on. I mean, certain accents from people, which we probably will discuss later on again. But what is she doing?
Why? You don't have to. You never had to, but she did. She went the full British accent. It's got to be mortifying to you.
It is, because it first of all, it doesn't make sense, because we've seen her previously, not with that accent. So why did they have that accent there? I don't understand.
I go back to Green Book, and I'm forgetting his name. Viggo Mortensen's "I'm working here" voice. I'm gonna eat 40 hot dogs. You gotta eat 14 meals a day voice. Like, I just hate that impersonation of Italian Americans. I can't imagine Amber Heard's British voice.
It's a stereotype, isn't it? It's a real stereotype, and I don't know if I'm coming across as a real Brit here when the way I'm speaking, but like, it's just so totally forced from her, and it's just not natural, and it just doesn't add up. But I mean, that is a small segment of the film, right? And it's at the end, and we've had her through the majority of the film, and it's still at that point, it's grating on me, it's still annoying me, and it's like, why are you even here? Why are you in this scene?
I had a sneaking suspicion you were going to also like this scene, because I really like this scene. I was saying to myself, hey, the stakes of this, just the stakes of this alone, I want this movie instead of what the hell I just watched. I want this movie because this is the end of the world. This is worthy of an apocalyptic team up. This is what, like, they got to change everything. They got to fight Superman. They got to, oh my God, we have underdogs for once. And that's going to be my biggest issue with this film, Craig, is that this God problem with Superman, and the fact that they can't write themselves out of that corner in terms of the screenplay. So never mind the fact that this movie, this scene, this epilogue was shoehorned in, but I just look at the subtext of that scene, which is probably the only scene with any subtext from a writing perspective. But there are some layers with the fact that the Joker and the Batman have their thing, right? I mean, Batman knows that the Joker knows that Batman knows that the Joker knows that the Joker wants Batman to kill him.
Oh, yeah.
They know this. They've dueled for years and maybe decades, according to some plot lines. And then, of course, we have the 15 rounds between Batman and Superman, at least in this storyline, which is interesting. So we actually have conflict here that is more layered than just Bullman who talks like this, and heroes that are so obviously heroic that we get gorgeous operatic yelling from wonderful female vocalists every time we have an action sequence. So I'm curious if this movie's story is something you still get behind, if it's something that, all right, you love these characters and you're more concerned with the character development and the character execution, because fundamentally speaking, my biggest worst is going to be with this script's plot. Yeah. And maybe I'm an idiot for getting hung up on a film's plot, but when it comes to a movie like this, how do you, again, you're the purist here, how do you compartmentalize this story is dreck and yet it's kind of cool? What do you think of this movie's through line?
I mean, it doesn't carry itself. It doesn't suspend my belief. Now, a lot of the Marvel films, and I'm sorry to say this, they can manage to suspend some belief in there because it's sustained on some reality in some instances, and that's why I really enjoy them. With the DC ones like this, there's some suspense that's built, but it doesn't also suspend that belief. And right. I think some of the plot here just didn't work. It's clunky at best to provide us with a real telling of how we get from point A to point B to point C all the way through. And I don't know, like, the more I'm talking to you, the more I'm starting to hate on this film. Should this be happening?
Well, I just wonder if it's a movie that is a bit like fast food. It's a bit like ice cream. It's a bit like sugar overload. It's a bit of, the good fun on first glance, on first watch. And that's been my sneaking suspicion on this movie all along, because, like, are critics going to be embarrassed of their reviews of this movie 3 years from now? 2 days from now? What are people going to be saying about this? Because here, I just come to blockbusters like this. You mentioned the MCU. I just rewatched Iron Man, and you feel the nitty gritty of that film. You feel the sand hitting him. You feel the sand on the guy's wound. You see the sand on the guy's wound, who gets his head, bald head, hurt a little bit, and he's got a wound covered in sand. It's gross, and you see that, and you feel the realism of that. In Lord of the Rings, right? You have the worms in the ground run away from the ring wraiths. You have the leaves on the trees like shrink and curdle when those bad guys are approaching. You have the Peter Jackson doing 100 camera tricks there to make practical effects work for that film. Yeah. And then you got this green screen nonsense where, all right, you're painting pretty pictures constantly, but we don't necessarily have the realism. It's not built in. And to me, 4 hours of that, when I can't view it episodically, is just like a deal breaker at the end of the day. But I guess the fact that you took it piecemeal, you could handle it. Do you have any? Well, you're saying you're kind of changing your mind. I'm talking you out of stuff. Mike and I do this to each other all the time. I talk myself out of
a little bit. I mean, I really, really, really did enjoy elements of the film, and I think it's the spectacularness of it, the spectacle, the big, large action scenes that were entertaining, and I'm entertained by them. But then, what's going on with the rest of the film? Because now, the more I talk to you about it, the more I realise it. Things fall apart. Things things disintegrate in your hands and you're devastated by them, especially if you're a huge DC fan. Actually, I think the more times you watch it, perhaps will it improve on the watch. And you've watched it twice. It didn't improve.
Twice. Not necessarily. However, I can't believe I'm playing devil's advocate against myself here, but I have to, because you did mention that, a lot of these sequences work, and there's a lot of enjoyment on the first watch. And again, you drew attention to the VFX, and we just recognized about the production backstory that that's where the money went, right? And that's where the expertise is, and that's where the new budget is. So the fact that we get that Amazonian scene where it's so obviously VFX, the fact that we get this in the same setting, the flashback to when Darkseid was there the first time, and Zeus and all those other cool heroes are kicking ass, and we got the huge battle, and the fact that we get down the hill with the beautiful sunlight, again, almost reminding me of Lord of the Rings. I believe it was the Two Towers, when, obviously you got that scene where the sunlight's over the mountains coming down. It's fake. I know it's fake. It looks fake, but it's still gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
And that's kind of this movie. It's just this cosplay porn. It's this hero porn. And it really is sumptuous and debaucherous for the eyes, I guess. But, all right, I have to bring up the Superman problem because there was nothing anybody could pay me, and nothing you could ever say, as beautiful a human being as you are, to get me to rewatch Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. So I'm wondering if you can help me and explain to me, I guess, why Superman woke up so grumpy in the middle of this film, because that's another huge set piece. Superman wakes up and he fights the heroes. This is a trope, but obviously he has been such a Boy Scout. He has been so wholesome for so long in terms of being such a heroic presence, even though, there's collateral damage to all of his fights in Man of Steel. But what do you make of that sequence? It felt like they were shoehorning it in, or does it have resonance from the previous film for you?
I think it has resonance going all the way back to Man of Steel, if I'm honest, because if we if we pick apart, Man of Steel, it's a great film until you get to the end, when something changes in Superman, that his moral compass changes, something that I really hated about that movie. And then we go through to Batman versus Superman, and we've got a lot of antagonism going through with Batman and Superman, and we have things going on in there that don't add up to the real true version of who these characters are. And is that Snyder doing that? I don't know. But then when you throw that into this film, and I'm expecting this sort of thing to happen, because it plays back into the hands of all the things that have happened previously. It's trying to separate itself from its source material in a way. Like, I'm giving more depth to this character. I'm showing you that he's not that character from yesteryear that is wholesome, is brilliant. But it does flip it on its head, because then all of a sudden he does become wholesome again. He does become, and it's like, it's strange. Why does he do that? That's
my problem with it. Yeah, that's my. Once he puts on the plaid shirt, then he's, Joe American again, and he gives you the boyfriend voice after the freaking plaid shirt comes on his beautifully sculpted chest. So, all right, I that's one issue I had with the movie upon rewatch, but that's because I didn't really remember what I tried to black out of my brain with the Batman v Superman plotline. But I guess what I cannot rationalize at all is the God problem with Superman. And they just had the lamest way of writing him out of the essential drama as being that last minute surprise, that what do they call it, high castle surprise for screenwriters, whatever, that moment at the end where he comes in and saves the day. Fine, all right, I figured that was going to happen. We all did. He was going to come back, even though he turned on a dime when he put on the plaid shirt. But okay, he comes back, but then they have to write out how powerful he is, because
Oh, yeah.
he is just mopping the floor with Steppenwolf, that it is hilarious. He punches him from one side of Romania to the other. He rips off his horn. Everything coming out of his eyes is putting holes through the guy's chainmail. Not only his chainmail, but his body, his bull body. And I mean, it's just a massacre. It's overkill. This guy is mush. He should be mush after a few punches. But then we cut away to just Superman pulverizing him in the background while this doomsday device syncs up and ends the world. That's what happens at the end of the movie. So Superman is so consumed with beating the ever-living shit out of this bull man that he doesn't know, that he hasn't met, or did he meet him in Batman v Superman? Like, that's the thing to me. Like, he's just distracted by this just sadomasochistic rage for some reason, and that's how we have to write him out so that the Flash could save the movie?
It's mind-blowing, isn't it?
It's a doozy. It's a doozy.
I just don't understand. Like, he is the most powerful character, and they've made him so powerful that, like, you can't have him in the film anymore, because he would always win every single battle that you have him in. And the only way they've undone that is by trying to make him the bad guy for about 2 minutes of the film. And this is a 4-hour film. Why wasn't there more development for this? Why didn't it take more of an effort to change him back to the wholesome Superman that he was previously?
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Like, you had enough time, Snyder, to bring that in.
Well, I think it's compelling, even though I kind of get aggravated with the transitions, like you said. It is compelling when Superman is bad and he's seriously. I mean, look, there's a novel series, a YA novel series that actually I loved as an adult called The Reckoners, where I think it's not Man of Steel, but Steelheart is the first novel, and there's a couple more. But The Reckoners is about bad guy superheroes, and regular people have to defeat them, and one of them's like Superman. And this is very similar to Amazon Prime's show The Boys, or these bad guy superheroes. I mean, this is stakes. This is screenwriting. This is writing yourself and writing your heroes behind all this jeopardy, or into all this jeopardy, and behind all these underdog odds. So once you sway the odds in your favor, like Superman he has to F up. He basically has to F up or get distracted for them to lose, for the heroes to lose. So my biggest issue with this movie is, like, why do we need 6 heroes? It's almost like they're forcing the team up. And we had Joe Messin, we had some good people on Twitter today kind of make this same point. We had DC kind of copying the Avengers, trying to go for the money grab to the point where they hired the same gosh darn director to save the project. You know, so it's just like, I don't know, man. I feel like they shoehorned the plot in, and it's my biggest story gripe. This is probably a 2.5-hour story. We're forcing it into a 4-hour story here, even though some of it plays better than the last. Obviously, a lot of it plays better than the last one. Yeah. But is there any reason why he takes so long to get to Romania? Or is there any reason whatsoever that he's sitting there talking to the Martian Manhunter, pretending to be his mom, or who was he? The Martian Manhunter shows up, and of course, I mean, I'm glad he released his name at the end. Like, that was the worst delivery of a line I've ever heard in my entire life. That's a great actor, by the way. But what's the deal with Martian Manhunter? He's part of the original super team, good guys, right?
Right. Well, I don't know much about him, so when he did appear in the film, I was like, hang on a second. Who are you? I would have liked to have seen you more in this film, actually. But at the same time, it adds this element of the fact that there could be more to this. And there's definitely things going about on the internet that there isn't going to be anymore. This is a full stop. This was ending Snyder's, DC universe.
You think so?
Yeah, and that's what they've said. They've said this is an end to it. But they've left you wanting more, 100%. I don't know. Well, did they leave you wanting more? I think that's the question.
Well, I think this is like a fan base that genuinely loves these characters so much that they are going to be aggravated now. So they're almost poking the bear in a way. But all right, I just I have story issues, and for me, I have a hard time getting over story issues in movies, but I'm a snob. I'm an Oscar pundit snob. There's a reason I review the collection movies I do, because I have issues, but all right. I think if this was a Bug's Life and this was Pixar, you would have thespian circus bugs defeating these bully grasshoppers.
Yeah.
I don't think you need 6 immortal god heroes or 5 or whatever. I don't think, to beat a bunch of bug people and a bull man horny for mother's boxes. I just don't think. I don't think you need as much firepower on the good guy side. But all right, so that's why I fall on the negatives with this movie more. But I do have some more negatives, so I don't know if you want to join me here. Do you want to preface any of what I'm going to say now with any more negatives?
Any more negatives? I mean, I feel like you're going to cover the bases here, but I mean, honestly,
You've read this, yes.
I haven't read this completely. I didn't manage to get all the way down to the bottom because there are so many negatives that you've got here. Like, I have a stat, but I think I might read that stat out when you get to that point, possibly if you've got it in here. It's about slow motion. Do you have that in your notes? Slow motion? Anything in there about that?
No, I don't. So,
do you want me to give you that stat? I can give you that stat.
Yeah, it's an obvious joke, though. Do you want me to set you up with the joke? Or do you
set me up with it. Go on. Set me up with it.
Well, I mean, everybody's been making this joke, and I have not made it. To my credit, it was the low-hanging fruit. I have not made it yet. But if Zack Snyder did this all in real time and didn't have any slow motion, it would have been a 2-hour movie. That's the joke, and everybody makes it, and it's never been funny. But there's your preface.
Thank you for setting me up there with that. But courtesy of IGN, who actually put the hard work in here, they've actually put in that there's 24 minutes, 7 seconds worth of slow motion footage in this film. So that's you can equate that to 1,447 seconds worth of that stuff. But
so it's not a slow motion movie.
It's not. But basically, it's about 10% of the movie is in slow motion. It is overkill. It is totally overkill, and it just basically emphasizes the fact that these are godlike heroes that are able to stop bullets and other amusing things, and use it sparingly. I personally hate it when it's overused, and it's a part of the film that I actually disliked, even though visually it's nice sometimes. If you look at Sherlock Holmes, the Sherlock Holmes film that Guy Ritchie did, there's some excellent slow motion in there, and it's done in a way that is purposeful. You get an unpicking of what's happening moment by moment from Robert Downey Jr., and that is the best way of use of slow motion, especially when it's used more often than not. And this in here, it's just far overused, far too much.
Well, that's fascinating because they're weaponizing the slow motion for the plot, for the narrative, for the screenplay. And obviously, you have Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes talking you through the slow-mo for that reason, which is fascinating. And no, we don't get any of that here. We get Aquaman with his shirt off, slowly walking into the water.
Yeah, how many shirts does he need to buy every time he takes that shirt off? Because he just chucks them away.
Yeah, I mean, he can use a friend like Bruce Wayne. He's going to bankroll his wardrobe. I mean, that's a wise thing. But, by the way, this is a positive, not a negative, but Aquaman's eyes are cool. He's got shark eyes. I had to Google pictures of sharks, and I was like, yeah, this is just a pupil and whites on the eyes. He's got shark eyes, so kudos to them. All right, Roose Bolton. I don't know if you're a Game of Thrones fan, but Roose Bolton is the bank robber. Why is he a bank robber in this scene? Like that, that's the silliest nonsense to open up the film. We have them blowing up 4 square blocks. These bad guys want to blow up 4 square blocks, but they have to rob a bank to do it. If they have a bomb capable of blowing up 4 square blocks, why do they rob a bank or blow their way into the bank just to warn Wonder Woman?
Well, no, I think I know how I can counter you on this one.
Please.
So obviously, if you're going to bomb a bank, that's going to cause some huge disruption to some sort of financial systems, and people are going to be in jeopardy. And I mean, I'm falling short here, really. There is no reason.
Well, if you have a bomb capable of blowing up the square footage, though, you could be on a bench next to me, and you could blow up the bomb.
And they wouldn't really alert many people then, would they? And then they would have succeeded in what they were trying to do.
You're not going to get the dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. You don't get that. You don't have to reckon with the person who can go at super speed and who can fight you with forearm pads and who can, just it's a great scene for
It is.
for Wonder Woman fans right there. I mean, it's an essential scene. I just wish I wish they wrote it better, wrote it as more essential. It's almost like we have to have a bank robbery scene here, so let's just make up this cock of shit reason to put it in there.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you. I tried to play devil's advocate, but I cannot succeed on your logic here whatsoever.
All right, so we're just west of Husavik, I think, and we're at this Viking village that Aquaman brings fish to every fortnight. Is that the worst musical number ever? It's just so prone to humor too, because like they're probably just singing about his abs. Whatever the translation of that song was, why do we need that song added?
I don't know. I don't know why they needed to add that song in. It transported me to a different place though. Like
It did.
I may have nodded off. No, I didn't. Honestly though, I don't know why we needed that in there. Come on.
You know what? It kind of just jumped to me.
Go on.
It does give you the kind of the god worship that we do get in the Watchmen series, right? I mean, that's a thing with DC, right? So they're worshiping Aquaman as a god there, I guess.
I mean,
that adds to the world
I suppose,
building.
and Vikings, they do like to do that sort of thing, don't they?
If you're gonna have a 4-hour film, you might as well just have a random white girl sing a Viking song about a guy with a six-pack. All right, The Flash. All right, I've tweeted this. I'm an ass, but The Flash runs so bizarre. It is this upward flip of the wrists. It is this nonsense where he's bent at the waist. It is this he's bowling the neck. He is Phoebe Buffay from Friends. He is leaning his torso into a hot tub and trying to splash you from under the water. He is running like Bigfoot walks in the Patterson Gimlin film. He is running like my dog swims. He is running like Conor McGregor post-fight on the shit. Cock of the walk. Thank you, Nebis Ben. Why is he? Who told him to run like this, Greg?
I don't know, but honestly, is it Ezra Miller's choice to do that?
Is it? That's what. Like somebody had to tell him. Listen, you're gonna run like you're throwing dice at a craps table. You're gonna run like you're doing those fucking ropes.
Flick
at
those
the
wrists. They carry you further. I don't understand it either. It's not visually very appealing when you're running at that.
It's hilarious when they zoom out at the end of the movie. Like I'm supposed to be taken by the catharsis at the end of the film. See, Dad, I'm making good. Great, fine. But then they pull back and he's running like a freaking goofy ass ridiculous human. I don't know what to say. I'm laughing out loud like a buffoon. As a track coach, I'm wearing track shirt. I am a high school track coach. Marty of Movie Marathoners, I'm sure would agree with me. He's a track guy too. So like I'm watching this running form and I'm fixated on it and I can't get past it.
No, I honestly, it's bizarre. It's humorous, really, to watch, and you're like, why are you even doing this? Actually,
Well, that's all right. So let's get into something serious though, because the Flash, he goes so fast that he reverses time and fixes the mistake of Superman needing blood, needing to taste the blood of this random bull guy that he just met, and beat him to the ever-living pulp that he becomes. Instead of saving the world from the Doomsday device at the end. So we have the Flash having to reverse time and saving the movie. Now, we could have also beaten the Bull Man if the Flash just like went really fast and had the sword, right? Didn't we establish the sword cut off his head at the end of the movie?
Yeah,
so
pretty
if the
easily.
Flash, yeah, I mean, you could have a Quicksilver montage where the Flash just kills all the crickets. And again, end of movie right there. But you can also have a scene where the Flash just kills the Bull Man. End of movie again.
Exactly. This is the problem, isn't it, with these DC films? Actually, that these characters are so overpowered that they could end things in moments. And so, why drag it on for 4 hours? Is the question really? Actually.
So all right, so yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm glad I'm not alone, and I'm glad you're a man of reason here. But I got more things like Batman. He drives like a dick. What? the hell? Like, he cut off that other car. Like, it was just to go 10 feet, and you got that beautiful vehicle. Just that I just have problems. Like, I work at a high school, and my nightmare is being stuck in that parking lot with the kids, and they're all driving like maniacs, fast and furious. And here he is, supposedly setting an example. I'm old, Craig. I'm just an old man who likes my safe driving. All right. I mentioned this at the top. Cyborg, the Vikings. Mankind thinks they can just bury this mother's box 2 feet deep in the ground, and that will somehow not be eroded away and easily found by not the Nazis, but anybody. Right?
Yeah, no,
Kind of silly.
It's probably one of the most silliest parts, because it's not only him that does that. Cyborg does that at some point,
Everybody
doesn't he?
does it.
They all bury them about 2 foot under the ground. Where's the logic in that? Some of these
animals
people
could
are
dig it up.
powerful. Why can't they dig bigger holes? I mean, come on.
What would Coyote become if, I mean, we saw Cyborg. He was basically a head, and he became Cyborg because of the mother's box. So, like, we would have, like, Super Coyote. If somebody dug that thing up, if a wolf dug that thing up, we would have the most powerful wolf in the history of the world because the mother's box created him. Oh, my God. I don't know what's going on. All right. The Flash is completely essential and then unessential because we have the greatest sequence of the film, this crazy ass thing in this tunnel, and the Flash does this cool move where he goes so fast and around to grab Wonder Woman's sword, and he flicks the sword to her, and what happens then? She just superhero falls with the sword, and she's fine. She lands like a cat. So what was the point of him tripping and that's another thing. He gets a basketball ankle. He doesn't even it's like a grade 3 whatever, or I forget now which the some more severe ankle sprain, grade 1 or grade 3. Do they go like golf? Anyway, he gets this mild ankle sprain and he's out of the movie and he can't do anything. You have no defense.
I have no defense on that. Look, you want me to like come in here and say, look, that was purposeful for this reason, but I have no defense for any of this. And as I say, you're changing my view of this film significantly. The more I need to go back and watch it, I need 4 hours, well, maybe 5 hours to just delve back into it and maybe see if what I'm seeing is good. I don't think it is.
I've succeeded. No, I wonder how many people can rewatch the film and continue to like. I mean, I guess if you're not like such a plot junkie and you don't need escapism as much as I do, and you're more psychologically healthy as a human being, I wonder, like yourself, who we've established is better than both Mike and me. But as it just again character, and I'll have the awkward intro to this segment, and I'll have the awkward outro now. But look, I mean, we have a movie that is. I guess a lot of sugar in a way, and that's okay.
Yeah.
People can enjoy this. The question I would have, like, I wonder if people are arguing others in a corner with how they love or hate it, or with the fandom. And Mike kind of just asked our last guest, Adnan Verk, before David there, about toxic fandom with movies. And you know, today I think we paid this movie some credit, and we've also gone on its case about some things. I want to fit, and I guess in that regard, I want to finish with some bests because we do have a couple, and it is important. So I'll leave it to you to start here. Do you have any other bests that we haven't talked about, or do you want to dive into one of your favorite scenes a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's maybe not even certain scenes that I really, really enjoyed. I think it's just the fact that they've managed to bring these characters to life, those that didn't get their day previously. You know, Josh Whedon had a way with... I mean, I'm going to ask you now, what was your view on Age of Ultron when that came out?
I had issues with it then.
Yeah.
I had issues with it on rewatch.
Yeah.
And I remember loving like the Hulkbuster scene, thinking it was the coolest thing I ever saw.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had issues with it both times, and the finale is still exhausting. So no, I had issues with Age of Ultron.
Yeah, so did I. And I recently rewatched it a couple of weeks ago, and I realized just how much of that carried across to the Justice League version that he did. And how inappropriate some of it really was. And I think like Zack Snyder cut a lot of that out and put in some of the more, some better bits to make it stand up. And I think the cyborg element definitely was an element that was needed. He was just so poor previously, and now we've got a well-rounded character. He had justice to him. I think like he is a huge character in this film. He carries the film on his shoulders in plot and in other nature as well. And I really liked his character, and I would love to see more from him. But I think, as rumor goes, I don't think he's coming back. Possibly.
Yeah, that's a strange production story. I got to research more, but I've heard people talk about it on other podcasts where I guess he is not a guy with an extensive resume. He hasn't done much after this. This was such a bad experience for him or something, and it's tragic because he's got some talent as an actor. I mean, he's just ahead acting, so he's Tom Hardying it. Really, I mean, he's doing fairly well there. I didn't have issues with his performance, but you're right with his story. I think you're dead on. That's one of my takeaways and my positives that I still have. Cyborg's backstory is horrifying. It's compelling. His father's death is meaningful. You see the reverberations of that through his son's change of character, change of mind, how he views I keep wanting to call them the Avengers, how he views the Justice League, where Wonder Woman's pep talk is one thing, and that's kind of like how the last movie went. Wonder Woman gives him a pep talk and he just shows up or whatever. But this movie, you get all the backstory and you get all the, and you let it breathe.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's been quarantined more than we have. We relate to him more than ever.
100%.
How many years has he been in that room, trapped in that room, or just on the rooftop there? I mean, he's living that quarantine life. It's not fun.
Totally.
We could totally relate to him now. All right. The Steppenwolf backstory is better, I would say, between him and Darkseid, and we get his allegiance, and we get why he's doing what he's doing. I still think this movie fails every Bechdel test to the point where it's almost like amazing how much it fails the Bechdel test, and how. Anyway, it's ridiculous. But all right, I think Steppenwolf is much cooler as a villain.
Yeah.
He makes more sense. The chainmail works. It's not just a bull with a great ass for 3 hours like the last movie. It's it's a different. They covered the ass for once. I mean, we still give the cyborg a great ass, but all right, we have a bull with a covered ass by the chainmail. I guess we don't like. We don't need to anamorphize it. So now we have Steppenwolf with a very satisfying end. He meets a satisfying end because he's a bastard the whole movie.
Oh, yeah.
And that final kill, the bloodlust from my lips is like Superman. I mean, I want him dead so hard. And Superman beats the shit out of him. And then they have this coordinated attack and they cut off his head. And it's great.
Yeah, honestly, he is now a fearsome character. He looks better, he has more depth to his story, and he has a satisfying ending. And that's what we wanted from the original film, I think. And we got it here, definitely. And why, it took 4 hours to get there, but it got there in the end, and it was a worthy ending for an antagonist like him.
And I would say both movies, I would think Barry Allen's storyline is solid. Like like even the last movie. I mean, they had some extra jokes with the last movie, even though people disagree in the fandom, him racing Superman or whatever. But I enjoyed the Flash stuff. I laughed at Ezra Miller. He's delivered some jokes in both versions, even though it gets a little, elongated, like this podcast has at this moment in time. But I think... I enjoyed the Flash scene. Are you looking forward to the Flash movie? Do you have a connection to the Flash?
I have to disagree with you on this, actually. I actually dislike Ezra Miller as the Flash, and a lot of people love him, but I really don't like his quips, his the smart sort of reactions to things, the quick talkingness of him. It grates on me. It's not something I enjoy, and it goes on for quite a while in this film, and I'm not looking forward to the movie, because if it's more of that for an entire movie with just him in it as that main character, I don't think I'd be looking forward to that at all.
No, you're right. You're right to point out my hypocrisies there, because he is very different from the tone of this movie.
Yeah.
His character is very different from the tone of this movie, and in both versions, I would say, even with Joss Whedon kind of yucking it up more so than this film. But I was just kind of finding so many other inconsistencies that I guess I just relished in something kind of half funny that made me laugh, and I guess I had some guilty pleasures associated with the fact that he fed hot dogs to dogs, that he, was calling out to his dad in awesomely badness at the end of the film, that he got to, do his silly, goofy run, but also save the movie. I guess I'm probably wrong, but we'll agree to disagree, because I just liked what I liked there, I guess. And you dislike what you dislike. So that's
and that's fine. That's cool.
So this was cool. I thank you for doing this, because this was a very difficult podcast. We were reviewing a 4-hour movie in an hour and 15 minutes. You're coming off a bird in your chimney. You're coming off the Week from Hell.
Yeah.
This is a hard movie to tackle.
Yeah.
I would say.
I could summarize it. I have written a summary for it. If you would like me to summarize it for you.
Oh, yes.
Okay, well, I believe ultimately Warner Brothers here with DC films in general are a bit like David when he's at a wedding dancing. You want him to stop so very badly, but you just can't stop watching, just in case he ends up becoming the world's best breakdancer or something. And that's exactly what most of these DC films are like. And this one is no different, I think. You can't stop watching because you're in this hope that there's going to be this resolution, that you are going to be so satisfied the whole way through, at least at some point, maybe. And it just doesn't stop dancing badly.
It doesn't stop dancing badly. And now I'm picturing David as the character from Blockers, who's like, oh, it's my moment, and keeps getting bumped into or something. And until the end there. But David, you will have your moment on the dance floor and again on this podcast. And he's watching now. And Craig, we got to have both of you guys back down the line. These were back-to-back episodes that were a lot of fun. So please, one more time, remind our fans where they can find you and David's work on the internet.
Well, we're Is It Worth It, the film review podcast, and you can find us on all good podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and all other ones. Or if you want to go to the website where you can stream all of the episodes, we have over 101 episodes. It's www.isitworthitpodcast.com.
And I'm actually going to just finish the outro here, because I think Mike is, again, you're a saint, Mike, for editing all this. There's a lot of episodes here, but it was a good conversation. But yeah, we're at M and Oscar on Twitter, Mike and Oscar on Instagram, Facebook, at Gmail, MikeandOscar.com is coming soon. We've got more Oscars content, of course, coming up. We've got our category review series that's starting up, and leading into that, we will have our Oscar Locks pod, where Mike and I will build on David and I's conversation and actually lock a couple of these categories, and perhaps more categories than we originally thought before heading into the SAG. So, guys, make sure you listen to Is It Worth It? Make sure you follow Craig and David, and please join us for the rest of awards season and more movie events to come. We don't just cover the Oscars, we cover movie events as well, just movies that we have to talk about. And Craig, this was like the most zeitgeisty movie ever, so I'm really glad you gave me this outlet to talk about this film. So thank you, bud.
No, thank you very much.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.